Hello, everyone, and good evening to everyone in India. So today we are. I think
A
somebody's on.
second, Saurabh, let me check if you're already live or not. Waiting. Let me try reopening this link. Yeah, great. We are live. Over to you, Sandeep and Saurabh.
Thank you, Sam. And if you can go on mute because I'm hearing the echo. So,
Sorry.
hello, everyone, and good evening in India. Today we are going to talk about customizing Sitecore commerce business tools. And first of all, let me start off with the introductions. My name is Saurabh, and I'm the founder of AssureX, an engineering agency specializing in Sitecore. And we have recently been recognized as a Sitecore Silver Partner. And together with my colleague Sandeep Pote, we are doing this presentation today where we're going to show, let's go ahead and do the agenda now. So we are going to talk about, basically what we are going to talk about is how to customize your business tool interface. So the reason we have picked up this topic is because a lot of commerce implementation we have seen in the past has got the problem that people are not able to customize the business tools, and that's why they try to take certain shortcuts or certain workarounds which shouldn't be taken. For example, they tried to store the data in XP because they were not able to find the requisite control in the business tool, or they were not able to control other aspects of the business tool, and that's why the data is being stored outside of the business tool, or business tool is sometimes not being used. So that's why we want to look into this, that's why we chose this topic, so as to kind of make you all aware. This is possible. How it's very easy to customize the business tool to get the things that you want. So what we are going to do, we are going to start off with the XC business tool, what business tools are. We are going to briefly talk about the plugins, just to baseline it with everyone, so that everyone is aware what we are talking about. We are going to talk about the entity views. This covers the baseline. After this, we're going to get into the actual development environment setup. How do you set up the development environment for developing for business tools, and then how to create the custom control. Uh, is actually, we have taken an example of a vertical view. So currently everything is being displayed as a flat view, or there are two or three other options that are available. But why we have chosen this is just to show you the capability that is available. So there might be a business case for that. You want to display the data vertically rather than horizontally, but the idea is to give you an overview that things are possible and how they are possible, so that you can take over and do your customization after that. Then my colleague Sandeep will take over and show you the demo. We'll see it in action. And after that, if you've got any questions, or if you want to ask anything specific about cyclocommerce, you can ask us. Otherwise, we can close at that point in time. So, what are business tools? So, let's simplify this. So, business tool in Sitecore is a kind of area that has been provided where you can go and visually manipulate the Sitecore business aspects. So, for example, if you're managing a merchandising, if you're adding a promotion, if you're managing inventory, etc., you can go and do it through a visual representation. So, it provides you a single user interface to manage those entities. So, I'm sure you must have seen that a business tool. If you have been working with commerce, it's very common. But if you haven't, we are going to kind of show you the screenshot as we go along in the presentation. So again, there is a single point of access that has been provided by Sitecore. There's a speak icon that comes on the Sitecore landing page. So click on that icon. It will go to the identity server to validate your identity, and then it will log you onto the single point, the business tool aspect of the system. So how does this all works? So basically what happens is business tool communicates with the commerce engine directly. So there are, when you're accessing the website from the front end, you go via proxy service proxy, which does a lot of activities in between. And what I would suggest is, like, don't break that model. I've seen that in many implementation, that model has been broken. So otherwise you will not be properly able to capture the marketing data. And that is the reason many of the Sitecore customers want to go for commerce, because it provides marketing data capturing capabilities as well. But in case of business tool, that feature is not required. So what happens is Sitecore talks to the commerce engine via authoring rule. There are 4 rules in the Sitecore commerce. So authoring rule is one of the rule which provide the minimum, where we configure minimal of caching. So that's where you go in and interact with the commerce engine. So authoring role will be the responsible role, but it doesn't happen directly, so you can't directly call the authoring API. So what you do is you go to the Sitecore identity, like in the normal XP as well. When you try to log into Sitecore now, you get to identity server. So you go to the identity server, provide your normal credentials, and once you're authenticated, you will be redirected back to the business tools. And in the business tools, you will see merchandising. These are the options, which you can see: merchandising, inventory, pricing, promotions, and these are like, different areas to be managed on the business tool. So, and these, the options you will see if you log in as an admin, you will see all the options. But if you log in as a different user, so you can configure different rules like merchandiser rule, pricing manager rule, promotion, marketing manager role, etc. So if you log in as a different role, you might not see all the options. You will see options specific to that role. It's kind of current, controlled via your rule, rule, the Sitecore commerce rule, Sitecore rules, basically the general Sitecore rules. So idea is to kind of hide these options, and as we see that you can add more options depending upon your needs, and based on that, those options can also be controlled by the Sitecore rules. So it's kind of very flexible, what you want to show, what you don't want to show, and what you want to do with the business tools. Let's go forward. So how it's been built? So it's been built on Angular framework. So I'm sure many of you working in the front end might be aware of the Angular framework. But as we show you, it's not difficult to modify as well. If you don't have much knowledge, but you have got a technical background, you should be able to edit this thing very very easily. So Angular 4 is the framework that is being used, and it's data driven. So when we say data driven, is like whenever I am adding a new data or some new entity to the Sitecore commerce, which I want to display on the business tool, I don't change any UI. So I don't have to build any UI. It's automatically happens. So when you create a new plugin, you will specify, okay, I want to get this view. I want to get a view of type this, and everything is handled by the front end to generate the view. So you are not kind of actually coding unless you are extending, like in our case, but you are not actually coding for the front end ever. Like for example, like in the normal projects that I've done so far, not many people have changed business tools, so none of the coding has been done for extending the business tool or the front end part of the business tool, but only the plugin, the Sitecore commerce plugin that have been created. There has been an SDK that has been provided by Sitecore out of box, and we are going to see that in the presentation as well, how you can use the SDK to extend the business tools. And it's very easy, like, and as you will see, like a lot of people have found it, because the people didn't know the way to extend it, and that's why they came up with the workaround to store the data in XP. And honestly, if I tell you, the workaround might still be needed for some of the scenarios, but majority of the scenarios will be handled via extension or by out of box business tools. So like I said, it's a single interface that has been provided in the previous version of commerce. You used to see a lot of icons here, like I think 3 or 4 icons were here to get into the commerce, different aspects of the commerce areas. But now it's just one icon. You will see on your left, it says commerce, and you click on this icon, you get onto the identity server, validate yourself, and then you will be on the dashboard. So this is how the dashboard is going to look like. So this again, all everything is coming, like I said, data driven. So all the data that you have configured behind the scenes is kind of rendered based on the parameters you have passed. So nothing on this screen needs to be developed from the front end point of view. So tomorrow, if I need to add another icon on the front end, it doesn't require any development on the front end side unless I'm kind of customizing it. So that's the flexibility that is being offered by business tools interface or SDK that have been Angular framework that has been provided by Sitecore. And believe me, that's one of the pain areas when we get a lot of complaint from the clients or the partners saying, okay, we can't get this, we can't get that. But there are a lot of things that are possible which people are not sometimes aware of. So that's why we wanted to have this session today. So again, you must have, you might see on the top left corner of your screen, there's the organization dashboard, which is again a custom thing that we have added this is not a part of the demo which you're going to show, but just to show you the capabilities that the organization dashboard has been added, and the icon on the main screen has been displayed for that. But not a single line of front end code has been done for this. So that's how flexible it is. And then we have got merchandising, where user can go and edit the products, their color, the other aspects, other properties of the products. So we call them sellable items in Sitecore Commerce. Inventory is like, mostly it's about the warehouse, and it's being used to develop the warehouse kind of scenarios, which identity set has got how many items available, and then you can manage your supply, or ordering from those particular warehouses. But that's like, customization. Similarly, if you go to pricing, you can manage the price cards here. So you can apply bulk price card to a to a group of sellable items, where you can provide discounts, etc. One of the scenarios is like, for example, if you're selling the products in a, like, for example, if you're a supermarket, and then that certain products are expiring on a particular date, so you can create a price card for that, and say, okay, discount this by 50% or 60%, or whatever the number that you want to choose. You can always do that. Similarly, in the promotions, you can create the promotions as well. So if customer buys something, you want to give a discount of 10%, 20%. For example, if you're a basket, for example, the cart size is 100 pounds, and you want to discount by shipping, so you can do all these scenarios in the promotions. Orders is for, used for order management. So whenever the front end order has been placed, you can manage the orders out of box. Similarly, customer is for customer management, and relationship definition and composer are kind of, quite not for the end users, but they can be used by developers to create the different scenarios. So all these screens, like you are seeing on the left navigation on the main dashboard, everything can be changed. Like, everything, additional data can be shown here. For example, if you're looking at orders, site could provide certain views out of box, but sorry, site could provide the certain views out of box. But what you can do is, like, for example, I want to add a different field for some scenarios. Suppose if I place an order, and I've asked for a customization on that order. So I want to see the customization that customer has asked for in the order screen itself. So I can add a flat view for that and display it on the screen. So that's pretty straightforward if you're using out of box control. And the main effort goes into developing the backend plugin rather than the front end view. So once you do that, it will be automatically shown on the front end. So there's no front end code change required. I reiterate that. So how does that happen behind the scenes? Behind the scenes, everything works through the plugin. And plugin is like, anything that you do in Sitecore Commerce, use plugins, unless you are making a storefront change. Even the storefront change, if you're consuming the data from Sitecore Commerce Engine, which didn't exist out of box, you have to create a commerce plugin. If you're not creating a plugin, and corresponding to the number of features that you've got, that means something is wrong with your implementation. What I've seen is, like, sometimes people add a lot of functionality into a single plugin, and use that to kind of drive the front end on the storefront, as well as on the business tools. This is not the right approach. So you have to plugin needs to follow the best practices. They should not be dependent as such in terms of functionality, but yes, they can refer other plugins for kind of getting some features, like we do out of like we use out of box plugins into our custom plugins as well. So we always do that. But again, they should be as modular as possible, and everything needs to be done via the plugin, and everything should be exposed by the proxy, or in the case of business tool, you can directly call the plugins there. So these plugin, like I said, they're not dependent, so it should be independently publishable as well. So when you that give the that's what I like about Psycho Commerce. I've been doing this for last 4 years, but these plugins are independently publishable. So suppose if you're ready with 10 functionalities now, you can, and it's like if you build a minimal viable product, you can go live with those and add more features with minimal effort. And when I say minimal effort, I mean it. So I'm not saying it for the sake of saying. You create a plugin, it goes live. You push in some DLLs and make some configuration changes depending upon the complexity of your project. It goes live within hours. So like we have created our b2b and b2b accelerators and the other accelerator that we have created. So when we use the plugin model, we were able to upgrade from one version to another within a matter of a day or two. Like we had like 30 plus plugins which we had to migrate into the new version, and we were able to do that within a day or maximum 2 days to kind of take the plugin, upgrade the code and deploy it on the new environment. That was the time amount of time it took at that point in time. So if you have got a great architecture, if you everything is kind of segregated, you will that get that kind of capability. Another important thing about the plugin is they are policy driven. So policies in Sitecore is specific to the Sitecore roles. And what happens here is the policy drives the plugin behavior. So policy actually drives the behavior. So you can configure the policies into the, for example, DevOps rule and bootstrap the commerce environment. And these are the terms that I'm using. I'm assuming that you're familiar with it. But if you are not, then you can ask me the question at the end of the presentation, or you can reach out to me offline and we can discuss those things. But if I go into the details of everything, it will take a long time, which we don't have today, unfortunately. But they are policy driven. You define the policy. You say, okay, let's take an example of a policy driven plugin. So for example, if I'm exporting an order, this is the presentation that I'm going to do on Monday in our Commerce Bytes. But what I'm going to tell people is, if I'm exporting the data to my file system, order data to my file system, and if I move, and tomorrow I decide, in the future I might need to move that to the Azure blob. So I build my plugin accordingly. So my plugin will have both the options, and depending upon the policy, option that we specify in the policy, my plugin will push the data to the different environment. So in that case, whenever I'm ready with the blob storage, I don't have to change any code. I just go into the plugin policy, change the policy, specify different options, and bootstrap the environment. And straight away it will start pushing the data into the Azure blobs. I know there will be different business scenarios, etc., for this, but from the development point of view, it's as simple as that. So in the plugin, there are a lot of things in the plugin, but we have tried to cover on the very basic level. So we have got entities. Like everything in Cycle Commerce is an entity. Order is an entity. Customer is an entity. So entities are the kind of JSON in terms of technical files. They are the JSON blobs or JSON files which are stored directly into the databases. So if you look at the commerce database, it's not very you know big database where I've got relation between the tables and all those things. Everything is grouped into the entities, and that's what gives the flexibility to the commerce platform as well. So imagine, like, we have got a sellable item, it has got some properties, and if you add more properties, imagine in the past that you had to add a new column into the database. So that will be a hassle. So you're modifying the database schema and extending those things. But in this case, what you're going to do is the next bullet point is the component. So you add more components to the entities, and those components are the extension points. So that's how you should extend the entities. And again, this is a big topic. I can't go into the details of this because that's not the part of the agenda today. Similarly, the every plugin has some pipelines. So if you're working on XP as well, you might be familiar with the concept of the pipelines in Sitecore. So the similar model is being done, implemented in Sitecore Commerce as well, but managing the pipelines, etc., is kind of much easier in Sitecore Commerce than in XP, because when we used to do the XP, used to go into the XML file and modify the pipeline, add your stuff. In this, everything can be done programmatically, so you don't have to worry about finding going through the Excel sheets. Oh, sorry, XMLs, and finding your place and add the pipeline and processors there. So pipelines and blocks can be added programmatically, and there are for certain blocks on our website. If you can go, if you want to know more about these things, you can read through those blogs on our website as well. Then commands and policies. I think policies are explained enough, and then these are the basic elements of the plugins. So now we are talking about entity view. So let's get on to the business tool side of it, and then look at the entity views and how entity view services can be leveraged to kind of get the data into the business tool. So now we are alluding towards our demo, and we are getting towards more of a business tool. So that's the baseline that has been covered. Now the next step is to it uses the entity views, uses the Sitecore Commerce View services. So what happens is, you get the data from the backend. It narrows or translates the core entity storage into a dynamic API. So you get a dynamic API which you can directly call to generate your views. Like I explained you, the data has been stored in the JSON. You call that API from the authoring environment, and then process that API in the plugin and send out the data to the front end with the requisite parameter, and the view will be generated to you. So everything, entity view is kind of flattened, and it's a response from the API, which supports a dynamic user experience. So everything, so it's like it's another way of saying it's data driven. Data is coming flat, flat file, and it's a API response. Based on the parameter, the views will be generated on the business tools. So that's how it works on that side. So let's get into the entity views. So if you look at that, there are certain properties, uh, and then what is going to happen is, so I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's something. So you will see that this is the entity view on your left, in on this on your screens on the left, and on the right it will have certain properties. So entity view is the kind of overall entity which you're going to display for that particular component. But in entity views model, like view property is a kind of actual values. And for example, what would be the display name to be used, what are the raw value, what is the value, is it hidden or not. So these are the specific properties. And similarly, you can specify, is it required. And if you look at this, these are the public classes. So if you want to extend, you can do that. Similarly, on the right hand side, you will see a UI type. So it will specify the data type of the particular property that is being rendered, whether it's a date or something like that. Similarly, if you look at the left hand side on the top, this one, UI hint. So this is again, this is being used in our demo as well, to specify whether you want to get a flat file view, or in our case it's a vertical view. So we are going to go into that, and we'll show you how to use these things on the front end as well. But if you're using the out of box functionality, you don't have to make any changes to the front end. You specify several hints, you specify your UI type, and you fill up the properties, and it will be rendered for you on the front end. So you don't have to kind of worry about that unnecessarily, unless you're making or extending anything in this regard. So similarly, like you're binding the view on the front end. So what is happening is, you policy, view policy details, entity ID, etc. are coming in, and then these are in the second box. There's an actual binding that is happening with the detail view and edit action. So you look at this entity view dot properties, add view property. So you are actually doing everything programmatically. You are not actually doing any front end code. So we are getting the organization name, and if it's not null, it's been assigned. So, and you can see all the properties are being read. So read only is true, and is hidden is false, and all those things are being kind of set up here. So like I said, like I'll show you in the graphics as well. So this is the child entity view. So, and this is the, if you look at the summary view, that's a child entity view. If you look at the details view, that's a child entity view. And if you look at the organization name, contact person as well, these are the properties which are getting assigned from the data that we're getting from the backend. So what happens is, when you try to access, for example, a customer or an organization, it goes get the JSON, a big JSON for that organization, bring it to the front, bring it to the middle layer where you create your plugins. So you read that there, you read the data from that entity which you require to be displayed, and then you specify the UI type and the UI hint that I want to generate, for example, phone number as a kind of integer, or like or address like a string. Then you specify that in the UI type, and use the UI hint to create this detail view. So all the data and everything kind of bounded together in the middleware, or I would say like behind the scenes in the plugin. And then these views, if you're using out of box, doesn't require any changes. So if tomorrow, if I want to add summary detail or any other thing, like next child entity view, I will not go and make changes to the Angular application unless I'm customizing it. So the flat views or several other views are kind of available out of box. You just provide the data, it will render it for you. So this is, yeah, this is, like I said, is a flat view. So now let's move on to like setting up the development environment. I'm being cautious about the time, just checking it. Okay. So development environment, first of all, we need obviously, because we are extending the commerce engine, we are going to use it very extensively to get the data from the backend as well. So you need an instance of the commerce engine deployed on the development environment. That goes without saying. Then you need the Node.js JavaScript runtime, because we are going to make a lot of changes to the front end as well in our scenario. Not, you don't need that generally, but when you're extending the business tools, having a custom components there, you need the Node.js JavaScript runtime. And then, like I said, it's built on Angular, so you need Angular CLI tools as well. So then you configure, you configure the public feed, the Sitecore public feed, using the npm config set and path. These are the paths that have been provided a lot of, at a lot of places. You can find this path easily, or otherwise they are here for you to kind of take a note of. And then you go and add your entries to whatever the directory that we choose. And in our case, it was C backslash users. So it's a kind of normal setting up a front end development environment with Node. And now what is going to happen is Sitecore has out of box in the installer package. If you when you download Sitecore Commerce, it actually has the BizFX SDK. This is the extension point for BizFX. And believe me, like 90-95% project that I've seen, no one has extended, because most of the needs have been fulfilled by out of box scenarios. Or sometimes they take the path which should not be taken, like storing the data in XP, when the data should actually be in in commerce. So rather than doing that, you look at this BizFX SDK and try to extend using this. Similarly, we need these files like icons and styling, etc., for it to work. So let's move these files into our development folder and extract the extract the SDK, and have these files into this our development folder, and you can create it wherever you want. Uh, so, like I said, it works with authoring server. So update these parameters. So update, habitat authoring is the default. Everything you will see is the kind of default. Sometimes people change the BaseFX URI, because we have changed this, because when you're going to test it, it should hit the same URL which is configured on your machine, so that when we stop the IS website and start using this one, there is no problem switching. But if you have got any other environmental changes, for example, if your identity server URI is different, please go ahead and feel free to change all these parameters which you have kind of configured or customized for yourself. BaseFX URI important, because once we stop the IS website and start running the development environment, it will listen to the same port. And if you don't change it, you will require a lot of changes to this will require a lot of changes to be made in the commerce environment to change the BaseFX UI there. So it's up to you. What we suggest is, change it here, change different URLs according to your environments, and it should be ready to go. Now install the packages. Like I said, icon styling and other packages that you install using npm install, and then you install the BaseFX as well. So everything is kind of goes in with the normal installation scripts. So now you build and run it. So if you look at this, it will start running on your localhost, the URL that have been provided in the bottom right corner of your screens. So localhost 4200, that's being used. Was the BaseFX. So basically, now BaseFX is running from your development environment instead of the deployment that you have done on your machine. So that's how you get this running on your machine. At this point, before this point, I would say you can stop your BaseFX website on the in the IS, and before you serve this from the your developing environment. So you see I've used the development tools. Angular is running in the development mode, and so your business tool is running from your development environment rather than the IS deployed website. So IS deployed website, it should be stopped at this point. You can see in the right screenshot, it should be stopped, and it should be running from your. Make sure that it is running. Otherwise, people get into a lot of trouble before if you move forward without validating these things. And every step, every now and then, keep on checking that, because sometimes the changes you make might break the code and it will stop working. So yeah, keep an eye on this thing. Now let's get into the actual vertical view. So what is going to happen is, we in the development folder, we go to this path and look at the views. So there are, every view has got an associated HTML file, CSS file, and a TypeScript file. And before I go any further, let me tell you, in the normal scenarios, you might not need to do all these things unless you've got a specific requirement where you want to generate a different view. So out of box, as such, Sitecore Commerce Business Tools are pretty flexible, but in this case, we are customizing it. So you have to look at all these things. So you will see the top three are the flat views. Every view has got got three files: CSS, HTML, and TypeScript. So flat view, item view, and list view, search view, uh, and then we are going to add the vertical view. So that's the new thing that we are adding. So you create these three files, and let's get into the details of these now. So in the TypeScript file that you're going to add, you are going to add this selector. This is a selector like we used to do in the front end code. It's a ID where where the data needs to be generated on your view. What is the template URL? So you will provide the HTML that is going to generate at that point in time, and what would be the styling that would be used. So again, everything is kind of parameterized here. You provide these paths. So basically, selector is the ID where you're going to generate, template URL is the HTML that you're going to generate, and the styles URL is the style that you're going to generate, the CSS that you're going to apply to that component. So that's how you specify this. So this is the HTML tag. Yeah, this HTML template. That's fine. So I think my the view is different. So yeah, so HTML tag, HTML template, and CSS like I explained. So now look at the HTML template that we spoke about. So you specify the value, property name, and the value, and then this is like we are generating the data. So it actually contains the actual actual HTML that will be generated. So we are generating everything in the table, and you will see all the properties that are going to get generated. So language, we're taking currency code, short dates, based on the languages that we are taking here. And similarly, yeah, so yeah, I think that's pretty much clear. If you have any questions, we can ask towards the end. But yeah, these are the towards the bottom of your screen, you can see inner HTML is going in, and then various properties are getting set up as well. So if it's HTML, it renders differently. If if it's list, it renders differently, etc. So how does that happen? Like when you're we took this example from the flat view, and what changes that we have made is we have added vertical view. This was the identifier. Let me show you this. So if you look at the selector there, SC BizFX vertical view, and that's being set up here. So SC BizX vertical view, that's a tag that has been added here. And if you look at that, look at the UI hint on the right side. We have added a UI link as vertical. So we are whenever the data that has been processed in the on the plugin at the back end in the plugins, we will specify the UI hint as vertical, if you see on the box on your screens as well. So UI hint would be vertical rather than the flat file, or any other, or maybe sometimes you don't need the UI hint, it will generate as a flat file. But yeah, so in our case it will be vertical. And what's the outcome that you're going to get is your data was rendered as a flat view in this way, but in our case it's a vertical view in this way. So it's a key value pair kind of thing mapping that has happened here. Again, like I wish to reiterate, is just to show you how things can be done, and there might be different other use cases you want to cater to using these things. So look at the amount of code that we did for this. It's pretty minimal, and once you have set up everything, it might not it will not require that setup kind of effort as well later on in the future. So now with this, I think that's a lot of theory for you. With this, I will like to hand over to this my colleague Sandeep, who is going to walk you through the demo on his machine, and then we'll come back and finish off this presentation. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and over to you, Sandeep.
Hey, thanks, Saurabh. Share my screen. Yeah, you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
If you
All
can
right.
make it, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, so as we saw in the presentation that to get started with the business tool, we need to log into the Sitecore client, and this is the launchpad where we see the option to navigate to the business tool. So here I'm already logged in, and when I click on the business tool, it should show the dashboard and the views which already Saurabh has mentioned. Like we can see out of the box entities over here like merchandising, inventory, and we also have created our own custom entity. It's organization dashboard. So currently this is running from IIS. Yeah. So yeah, if you see here, Sitecore BizFix is there. So I'll show two. There will be two demos, like how to set up and how basically the setup is already done, and I'll just show how we make it run from the JavaScript runtime, the business tool itself, and then I'll show how we change the code, where we need to change the code, and how we are able to see the flat view, move it to the um, uh, vertical view. Yeah. So yeah, let me go back to the folder where in the presentation we saw that there's a development folder. So this is how it will look like. So this is, I have extracted from the installation folder the BizFix SDK and those three files which are the supported files to have which needs to be up which the business tool needs to apply the styling and fonts, etc. Yeah. um, so yeah, once we have this folder in place, what we need to do, and once we have all the npm installed and those files which are required been installed, which I have already installed here, so I won't install that now. But what I will do is next is I'll stop the BizFix site here, and I'll try to run. Sorry. Yeah. So this is where we are like initiating. Um, Basically, it will compile the code, and it should then run the business tool from our development folder. This sometimes take a little while. It should compile in a, yeah, it started compiling. So basically this is now yeah, compiling, and then it will start listening to the 4200 port. Let's give him a second. Yeah, so yeah, see, yeah, now it's listening to the 4200 port. So now when I hit that URL, yeah, I'll log in. Now, if you see, everything is same. Our site is stopped here, but it's now running from the JavaScript runtime. Yeah, it's been listening to that port. Yeah, so all the entities, again, it remains same out of the box. What we see, we are able to see here, and our custom entity. Yeah, so this is the demo one, where we should be able to, first we should be able to set up the development environment before we could start looking into the or creating the new component. Okay, now next is as Saurabh showed us, like three files that we created for the vertical view. So currently, if you see in here any of the, I'll just open any of, yeah, so this is like a flat view. Yeah, so what our next demo will be to show how we create the vertical view here. Yeah, so I'll quickly show you where are those files, the components folder and views. Here are those three files where we have updated, like we created the HTML. Yeah, so these are the property name and value, so name value pair, and we check whether that property itself is either a language or a decimal, and it should be able to then show the data based on the data type. Yeah, so the UI type that has been set in the backend, based it reads here the UI type and checks whether that UI type is date time or any type of data, and it tries to render that type of data here. Okay, so the view that we have changed is here in the HTML. And yeah, let me quickly go to the component itself. Yeah, so here we mention what will be the selector, like an identifier, and the URL template URL, the HTML, and the CSS. Yeah, in normally the CSS remains same because we don't want to change much of how the business to look like. So uh, yeah, but if you want to tweak anything, yes, it's flexible enough to tweak. Yeah, so quickly I'll show where we made a change to make the business tool understand that we need to render, if it's a vertical UI hint, uh, what we need to render. So here that tag is used. Yeah, where we saw that the component was initiated when the UI hint is vertical, which is set in the plugin. It should start rendering that component. Yeah, by default, if you don't use any, it's a flat view. Yes, we have added the vertical view here. All right, so let me quickly jump back to the code and show you in here. Yeah, so this is how it might. So if you don't have any UI hint, then yeah, it falls back to the flat. And now currently I'm using a vertical view. So what I will do is I'll just compile this code and copy that DLL to authoring site and stop for a while. Paste. Yeah, so we have that code been deployed, which mentions which sets the UI hint to vertical. All right, let me refresh my screen now. I'll open another window. Yeah. It's taking a while. Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. I didn't start authoring. Yeah. Yeah. So now we see the organization dashboard. Yeah, so if you see, the view is changed. So it was earlier the flat view, now it's the vertical view. All right, so all the functionality should remain same, like whatever we, if we do editing, save or edit or add new, so it should remain same. Yeah, so this is how we are like managed to change the view using the Angular and a small backend change. Yeah, I think that's me. Saurabh, what do you?
Yeah, let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see. Say,
Yeah, I'm able.
all right. Thank you, Sandeep. I think, yeah. And as you must have seen, all of you must have seen how simple was it, kind of, making that change and getting that running on your machines. And that's why, we wanted to pick up this topic just to kind of emphasize on that point that the changes are simple. You don't need to take the workarounds if you want to make any changes. So stick to the best practices that can be kind of recommended by Sitecore. What you're going to have is proper support from Sitecore, and the implementation would be in line, because a lot of things goes behind the scene when you call an API, like caching, like a firing of the events on the front end if you're doing it from the storefront. So a lot of things happens at the back end. If you follow this proper model, you're going to get the benefit of the complete benefit of the platforms. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on certain features, or maybe land up in the unsupported territory. So with this, is like we are coming to an end of our commerce bites. So on your screen, oh sorry, not commerce bite today, but yeah, I've been a habit of commerce bite. Yeah, so shook on NCR. But with this, like on your screen, what we are doing on Monday, we are running another session for commerce bites. In that session, I'm going to talk about minions in Sitecore commerce, and there's another speaker coming in from Altodo who's going to talk about scaling your business. So if you're interested, you can, I've seen like many people have joined in the past. So on the shot on the left will give you the direct link to the commerce byte website. So if you want, you can scan on your mobile and get to the website and register there. And if you want to watch our previous videos of our commerce bytes, go to the link on the right. So the link in the red. So scan that one. You will land up on the page where we have all the videos of the sessions we have conducted so far. So yeah, and if you want to know more about our services, and just to let you know, at Assurex we are hiring in India as well as in the UK, and there's a possibility of relocation as well, for the right people and the right skills. So if you're interested, let us know, and reach out to me or reach out to Sandeep, and we will be in touch. Similarly, most of the topics that we spoke about, at the very high level, they are being covered in our blogs. So you can see the links to our blogs. So you can go to those blogs and have a kind of deep dive into the external topics that we spoke about. And if you've got any questions, or want to go to the want to chat anything related to Sitecore or any world event, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter or LinkedIn on the coordinates listed on your screen. So yeah, and one last thing I would like to share is we have been recently recognized as a silver partner for Sitecore as well. So that's a good news that I wanted to share with everyone. So yeah, thank you very much. With this, we come to an end of our today's session. Our website is assurex.co, and if you need any other information, feel free to reach out to us at info@assurex.co. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for attending. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy your evening.